Okay, let's unpack this. There is this incredibly pervasive, um, romantic idea out there that money simply does not matter,
Oh, absolutely. We culturally obsess over that narrative, like the starving artist whose soul is perfectly nourished.
right? You see it in movies, you hear it in songs. It's this enduring image of the penniless poet who is just, fundamentally happier and more spiritually fulfilled than the miserable executive sitting in a penthouse.
Yeah, it almost acts as a collective coping mechanism for us, because if we convince ourselves that wealth equals misery, well, it absolves us from the anxiety of our own financial struggles. We tell ourselves we possess a higher intangible wealth.
But then you step out of the movie theater, you check your bank account, and that romanticized picture completely shatters because the rent is due. The car needs a new transmission.
The grocery bill just went up another 20%.
Exactly. And when you are standing at the checkout line calculating whether you can afford both milk and eggs, the poetry doesn't really help you. It's easy to say money isn't everything until your rent is due and your family needs to eat, right?
It doesn't help at all. And that harsh collision between the romantic ideal and the brutal practicalities of life is the core of the source material we are tearing into today. We have a fascinating, deeply layered conversational transcript that attempts to map the exact boundaries of wealth, basic human needs, and genuine fulfillment.
We are tackling the absolute oldest debate in the history of commerce. Can money actually buy happiness? And the mission of this deep dive isn't to recycle tired cliches. The goal is to figure out the literal psychological relationship between the balance in your bank account and your actual day-to-day well-being.
Because if we misunderstand the function of money, we end up completely misallocating our existence.
Right, and why should you, the listener, even care about this? Because when you think about it, you are likely dedicating the vast majority of your waking adult life to the pursuit of earning an income. You are trading your most vital years for a paycheck.
Which is a massive investment.
It is. And understanding whether that immense effort is actually serving your happiness or actively working against it is honestly the most crucial life audit you can possibly run.
I agree. Because we risk pouring decades into a pursuit that might be structurally incapable of delivering the psychological payoff we expect.
So I want to start by tearing down the idea that money isn't everything, because I think that phrase is a luxury of the comfortable. It is incredibly easy to philosophize about how money doesn't matter when your stomach is full and your heating bill is on auto pay.
The sources address that head on, actually, and they totally validate your pushback. They lay out an unavoidable baseline reality, which is that biological existence on this planet is expensive. You cannot simply opt out of the material costs of survival.
You really can't.
The transcript uses a stark, emotionally devastating example of a family living in severe poverty. They possess immense love, deep bonds, and true loyalty to one another, but the father falls ill and they physically cannot afford his medicine. Yeah, and at the same time, he cannot afford to pay his daughter's school fees. So love, tragically, cannot cure sickness or pay tuition.
That specific scenario just highlights the absolute chilling limits of intangible virtues. Like, love is essential for the human condition, but love cannot be deposited at the pharmacy.
Exactly.
Love cannot cure a bacterial infection, and it cannot pay a tuition bill to secure a child's future. When you lack the capital to solve biological and logistical threats, you aren't living. You are merely surviving a constant barrage of emergencies.
Which introduces a toxic level of chronic stress. The sources point out that without money, you are denied access to the basic mechanisms of progress. We aren't just talking about feeling a little down.
Right, it's physiological.
It is a state of agonizing, relentless cognitive load. When you are experiencing sleepless nights, when every unexpected noise in the house might be an appliance breaking that you can't afford to fix, your brain is just marinating in cortisol. There's absolutely no biological room for happiness to take root in that kind of environment.
So if the lack of money creates this constant stress, these sleepless nights and family fights, does simply having the money automatically equal happiness? If I step into that scenario and hand that struggling father the cash to cover the medical debt, is he now fundamentally a happy person? Does the cash equal joy?
The source material draws a very sharp line here, and the distinction is crucial. Having the money to pay those immediate life-threatening bills isn't necessarily happiness, it is relief.
Relief. Wow, that is a massive distinction.
It removes the tension. Think about the physiological response. Relief is the extinguishing of a fire. Studies heavily cited in the text show that when people living in poverty receive a financial injection, their well-being metrics spike dramatically because their basic survival level problems are solved.
It's the difference between drowning and finally getting your head above water. When you've been suffocating for months, taking a deep breath of normal air feels like a religious experience.
Right, exactly.
But breathing air on dry land isn't a permanent state of euphoric joy. It's just the baseline requirement for not dying.
And that leads to the most misunderstood pivot point in behavioral economics. Once you are breathing comfortably on dry land, does acquiring more and more oxygen make you increasingly euphoric? Does stockpiling compressed air tanks in your living room improve your daily mood?
Logically, no. But society acts like the answer is yes. But if solving basic problems creates such a massive jump in well-being, does the happiness keep climbing as the bank account grows? This brings us to the scientific plateau of wealth, right?
Yes, the plateau. And the scientific consensus highlighted in the sources is clear. Money only increases happiness until your basic needs are met. After a certain point, the correlation drops off.
It just fractures.
It drops off almost completely. The sources define this enough threshold specifically, not with a dollar amount, but functionally. It's earning enough to take care of your family, pay bills, save a little, and enjoy small luxuries. Beyond that, chasing more money just introduces stress.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. I was reading that section on the diminishing returns of wealth, and it immediately made me think of an analogy. It's like packing for a hiking trip.
Okay, I like this. How so?
Well, if you are going on a serious trek up a mountain, a warm jacket and good boots are essential and make the trip enjoyable. If you don't have them, the hike is a miserable survival situation.
Right, you freeze.
Exactly. But if you get to the trailhead and you keep packing 10 more jackets and 5 more pairs of boots into your bag just because you can, the sheer weight of carrying them ruins the entire hike.
I love that analogy. It perfectly connects to the bigger picture outlined in the sources. Chasing money past the point of basic comfort makes people slaves to the pursuit.
They completely immobilize themselves.
They do. They become beasts of burden for their own assets. They work day and night, missing their children growing up and their parents getting old. They end up with big cars and big houses, but as the sources note, they are constantly tired, angry, and feeling empty looking back.
Because they are carrying 20 jackets up the mountain. They are sweating, looking at the dirt instead of the view, constantly paranoid someone is going to steal their extra boots.
Exactly. It's a tragic irony.
But if stacking up excess money only weighs down the hike of life, it means we are fundamentally misunderstanding what money is. It forces us to recategorize money from being the ultimate destination to simply being a practical implement.
Yes, we are treating it as the goal instead of a tool.
The sources use a really powerful metaphor for this concept. They say money is like a knife, and I just found that so compelling.
It strips away all the moral weight we project onto wealth.
Right. A piece of sharpened steel is totally neutral. A knife could be used constructively to cut vegetables and prepare a meal for your family.
Yeah.
Or it could be used destructively to hurt someone. It all depends on how the user wields it.
It's all about the application of the tool. If you view the knife as the goal, you just sit in a room hoarding knives while you starve.
So what does this all mean? The sources break down these profound contrasts to illustrate this. Money can buy you a bed, but it cannot buy you sleep.
Oh, that's a great one.
Right. It can buy a house, but not a home. It can buy a phone, but not a real friend.
Those contrasts are vital. They map out the exact border between the material world and the internal world. And that brings in the distinction the text makes between a rich person and a wealthy person.
Which at first glance sounds like the exact same thing.
It does, but they treat them as opposites. A rich person just has a lot of money and is perpetually busy trying to make more. They are trapped on a treadmill. A wealthy person, however, has a lot of peace and is busy actually enjoying life with family and friends.
Autonomy is their real currency.
Exactly. The expert highlights this beautiful source example of middle-class families on Sunday evenings. They may not have much money, but they sit together, eat simple food, and genuinely laugh. That genuine presence is real happiness.
That is so profound. And this profound difference between a rich bank account and a wealthy life leads to the ultimate hypothetical choice in the text. It's a choice that pits our desire for financial security directly against our most finite resource.
The job hypothetical.
Yes, I want to pose this tough hypothetical scenario from the text directly to you, the listener. If you had to choose between a highly stressful job paying, say, 1 crore, or a job paying 10 lakhs that gives you abundant time with your family, which do you take?
It is the ultimate litmus test.
I have to be vulnerable here. Honestly, 5 years ago, the one career job would have been the obvious choice for me. I wouldn't have even blinked. I would have told myself I'll suffer for 5 years, hoard cash, and buy my freedom later.
The deferred living strategy. We all do it. We convince ourselves we can just put life on pause.
But reading this text, I realized something that completely shook that logic. Time is the absolute only thing we cannot buy. Money comes and goes. You can rebuild a fortune. But time with aging parents, growing children, and real friends is priceless and strictly unrecoverable.
It moves in one direction.
Once that Tuesday evening slips past you while you're answering emails, no amount of capital can bribe the universe to give it back.
And that synthesizes the final answer to our core debate today. Money can buy comfort, security, and convenience. It can solve money problems, and we cannot understate how vital that is. But it cannot solve heart problems or fill an inner emptiness.
It can buy the heavy boots, but it can't walk the trail for you.
Exactly. True happiness is an inside job. It stems from relationships, peace, and most importantly, gratitude. As the text explicitly states, gratitude is the real wealth. If you aren't grateful for the simple Sunday dinner, you won't be grateful eating at a Michelin star restaurant.
The external stimulus changes, but the internal receiver is still broken. So wrapping up the takeaways from this deep dive, the mandate here is to be the master of your money, not its slave. The advice is clear. Work hard, earn money, and be successful to secure your comfort.
We still need the jackets for the hike.
We absolutely need the jackets. But critically, do not forget to stop and enjoy life inside that fortress you build. Hug your parents, laugh with your friends, and stop comparing yourself to others. Someone else might have more money, but you might have far more peace.
I want to leave the listener with a final, lingering question to mull over. We've established that money is a tool, like a knife. But tools are meant to build something specific. Have you ever actually sat down to define what your enough looks like, or are you just endlessly acquiring tools for a house you're too busy to ever live in?
Until you define the blueprint, you'll never stop buying hammers. That is such a powerful thought. Remember, while money is important, you are more important. Take care of yourself and your people. If this deep dive made you think, share it with someone who might need a reminder to enjoy the hike. We'll catch you next time.